our spiritual life. So looking through CÁRITAS, of course, I went through a search online, and a lot of things came up. The first thing that came up was a special product from L'Oreal. Yeah, no joking. A special product from L'Oreal is a salon beauty in France, but I'm sure they say CÁRITA, not CÁRITA, CÁRITA. And then the second one came Caritas Aotearoa, New Zealand. There is the Caritas Society. It's a charitable organization that focuses in helping everyone around the world, especially where there is a major uh, catastrophe around the world. So they kind of help people. There's 106 different countries all over Europe. And there's one called Caritas Aotearoa, New Zealand as well. But then I came across this interesting information. Saint Faith, Hope and Charity, in Latin, Fides, Spes, et Caritas. That's where it comes from. So Caritas is charity. Are a group of Christians martyred saints, so they are considered saints by the Catholic Church, venerated together with their mother, Sophia, which is in Greek is wisdom. So the story goes that that references of the time of the Gregory the Great suggest two groups of martyrs, mother and daughters. The one buried on the Aurelian Way, that's the Sophia, she's buried there, and then the other on the Via Appia, according to the Passe. Sophia was a widow of Milan who gave away all her possessions. So she had some possessions. She sold everything and went to live in Rome with her daughters. And we're talking about 200 years after Christ, okay? That's 200, just in the second century, so a long time ago. They went to devote their lives to Christianity, but of course, in that days, the Christians were persecuted. So they had to deny their faith in Christ, and then faith, hope, and charity, they did not. They preferred to die, and then they died. The mother, her daughters were martyred before her, and she buried them at the Via Appia. And then she died a natural death 3 days later while praying at the grave of their daughters. So she didn't die as a martyr per se, but she was praying for her daughters, and then she died, and then she was considered to be one of this group of martyred saints. So faith, hope, and charity. And just to give you a picture, they're really very followed by the Orthodox Church. So there's a picture I found there, the Sophia, and then the three daughters. If you look there, very typical Orthodox paintings, right? This, especially the Greek, a lot of Eastern European and Russia. These religions still follow to these days, and there's churches with their names in the United States, in Europe, on their behalf, and the origin of the name Faith, Hope, and Charity, this was not their real names, because according to Eckhart Salsa, my French is much better than my German. He's German. He's a German theologist and priest. He on his book on 2000, which is called Faith, Hope, and Charity: The Martyrdom. He knows that early Christians from the fourth century indeed often took in baptism mystical names indicative of Christian virtues. And Sophia, Sapientia, it's also Sophia is knowledge in Greek. Sapientia, it's in Latin. Fides, which is faith, and Caritas are attested as names of Christian women in catacomb inscription. So their name was not real, Caritas, but the most important thing is that the message that she brings, in what we're going to see in the next part. So just thinking back, okay, so I found out who Carita, or Carita, or Caritas, some people say with the S at the end. But of course, in Spiritism, we must go through the source and find out, is that really important to find the identity of the spirits? Because sometimes we might be overwhelmed or let's say amused by the personality behind it. Allan Kardec was very interested and cautious about that, and he went on the medium's book he did advise us on chapter 24, identity of spirits, about the proof. So how can we truly know that that message was by Caritas? Okay. Of course, Kardec did his own investigation, right? Because as we know, everything that he put on the codification, he went through the universality of the teachings of the spirits. He wouldn't have put into the gospel, but he also said that we should investigate as well. So I followed my investigations, and that's what I found. But I wanted to see what is the universality of the teachings of the spirits. What is the ruler? What is the measurements for that? What measurements did he take that we should take? Because we're going to be seeing other different manifestations, different books. The literature, spiritual literature is very rich these days, right? So we have to use that measure. So in question on this chapter, second part of the medium's book, chapter 26, Identity of the Spirits, he asked the questions of, he states, the question of the identity of the spirits is one of that has given rise to the greatest controversy, even among the believers of Spiritism. The spirits do not bring us letters of introduction. They don't come with a CV. Hey, I'm a spirit such. This is my CV. I've done this in this book before. No, they don't give us that. And it is well known with what facility some of them take borrowed names. Spirits sometimes take borrowed names. They say they are one spirit, and in fact they are not. So that obsession aside is one of the greatest difficulties in the practice of Spiritism. It's really hard to pinpoint what actually Spirit is doing that. Yet, in many cases, absolute identity is a secondary question, okay, and without real importance. So the bottom line is, it's not that important who wrote the message. If it was Caritas, if it wasn't Caritas, or who it was. But then on questions 262, or the item 262, it comes to further find a distinction between the good and the bad spirits. If the absolute identity of the spirits is in many cases a secondary question, one of little importance, is not the same with that distinction of the good and bad. So it doesn't really matter the identity of the spirits. But one thing is for sure, we must identify what's the nature, what's the content of those messages. That's another part that is more important than the name itself. The author is not very important. It's important for us who are incarnated, and we are after, we want some validation, but the most important is not that. Their individuality may be indifferent to us, the quality never. In all instructive communications, it is on this point the whole attention should be concentrated, because it alone can give us the degree of confidence we may accord to the spirit, whatever may be the name under which he manifests himself or herself in this case. If the spirit is good, is the spirit good or bad? To what degree of the spirit scale does he belong or she belong? This is the grand question. What kind of message is that spirit trying to say? Does it go with accordance of what the nature of the spirit is? He's saying or she's saying it is. If the spirit is Caritas and is real, the Caritas that according to the message that we're going to see that was written on the Gospel according to Spiritism, is the inspiration for us to do charity. It must be a good communication, not a misleading one, correct? So we're going to do our own investigation and find out. Yeah, let's have a read through. And so once again, the spirit starts the message. That, of course, is way past halfway through the chapter. The chapter is quite long and gives us a lot of different ideas about charity and the proper way of doing charity, and what is charity in a way, because it's still a term that is quite confusing for even talking about 2,000 years ago, and it's still when Allan Kardec and the spirits came with the codification, we're still not quite sure what real charity is, and we see a lot of this the word around, like I just mentioned, Caritas, the charitable institution here. But anyway, this item 13, Caritas presents herself saying, they call me charity. I follow the principal path which leads to God. Accompany me, since I know the goal for all to aim at him. So straight away, she's already given us an invitation, right? She's not telling us that's the way to do it. I know the way. Just follow me, follow me, follow my way, follow the way that will lead you to God, as a way of evolving, as a way of learning about your brothers and about yourself and about God Himself. And then she goes on about. I won't be reading the whole item because it's quite long, but she goes in saying that how this morning she went around doing the rounds, and she came back with great sorrow because she could see that if there's so many people suffering around where she was. And even though she tried to comfort people, people sometimes wouldn't listen to that. That comfort is coming, that there is other workers that are coming to help them. And she felt sad. Also, yeah, she's saying that there's so many miseries around, that it's all around the society back even back on those days, and we still see that. Of course, we don't have to go doing the rounds. We can see the sufferings in surrounding us, in a physical way, in the health, in the mental and psychological ways. A lot of people suffer from depression, people suffering from hunger. It's suffering still around, and there's many opportunities for all of us to be charitable. So, and it's interesting to see that the superior spirits are here to help us. They are going around us. They are trying to give us messages of hope, messages of inspiration. But sometimes it's hard when you don't have the conditions to to connect, or you're not willing to connect those messages. Sometimes they have to wait until the time is right, because we have to be open to that communication. So she goes on to say, after seeing all this suffering, she's considering to say, that is why I have come here, my friends, to the spiritists that are reading this book, to us, and say to you, everywhere abound unfortunates or fortunate people whose cupboards are without bread, whose lounges are without fire, like a fireplace, without warmth, and whose beds are without blankets. I do not tell you what you should do. Once again, I'm not going to tell you, go there, do this, go there, to there, like a mechanical, like a robot. You know, I leave the initiative to your good hearts. If I were to tell you how to proceed, you would derive no merit from your good deed. I will tell you only, I am charity. I hold out my hand to you on behalf of your suffering brothers and sisters. So, Caritas, or charity, is coming asking us on behalf of those who are suffering, because she's gone around and seeing. But we don't need Caritas to tell us that. We can see that, right? We can see there is a lot of suffering in the world, and she's asking for our help. And then, but if I ask, she's asking for something. But if I'm asking to help those who are in need, we're going from here now. I also give, and give much. I invite you to a great banquet, and I furnish you with the tree from which you will all be filled. Behold how beautiful it is, how it is loaded with blossoms and fruit. Go, go, pick and take all the fruit off that lovely tree called beneficence. In a place, or in place of the branches you have left bare, I will attach all the good deeds you have done, and will take this tree to God, so that He may load it up again. For beneficence is inexhaustible. So follow me, my friends, so that I may count you among those who rally around my banner. Fear not, I will lead you along the way of salvation, for I am charity. Carita, martyred in Rome. This lecture started because of this, martyred in Rome, Lyon, 1861. So, is this message bad or good? It's pretty good, right? Yeah, so it's an invitation for us. It's not a threat. It's not an order. It's just open your eyes, look around you, see who those who are suffering. And I ask you to do something, but also I'm giving you, which coming back to the principles of the Spiritist doctrine, the law of cause and effect. if you want to have this beautiful fruit, which will be the fruit of our own work, you follow these, and you'll be able to receive, sow, and you'll be able to reap or gather what you have sown. So it's an invitation to us. Um, However, we're going to be seeing later that that recompense or the reward should not be the aim for our actions. We shouldn't be doing this trying to achieve this beautiful fruits and beautiful trees and the rewards that we have. Because the true charity, we are we do it without expecting anything back. Just knowing that is part of your growth, and it's part of helping somebody else grow as well. Okay, but she's again letting us know that whatever good you do, there will be a good reward after that. But then again, if you go looking for the reward and forgetting about the intention of your action, the reward is not going to be there. So it's quite tricky. It's a slippery slope that we have to manage to be able to do a true charity. It has to start somewhere, and um, yeah, because in this chapter we have a lot of different articles. One goes, do good without ostentation. Not only not asking for a reward or thinking about the recompense, but do good without ostentation or without showing off, you know, which is quite easy to do, especially when you're doing material charity. Moral charity is a little bit different. Also, this chapter you talk about the difference. In chapter 14, we'll talk a little bit about that, the difference between material charity, which is, um, let's say, easier to do, but it's also easier to ostentate and to show off and to, in a way, affect the other people and receive it, um, without putting them down, trying to make yourself feel superior. There is a way of doing material charity without ostentation. Yeah, but it's a bit harder to do that when you're doing material charity. And the moral charity would actually lift the person up without her realizing, you know, she's being lifted up. She feels that she's doing it herself, but you're just giving a hand. Just like Caritas is giving us her hand before, right? She said, "Hold my hand. Uh, I will show you the way. I'll show you those who are asking for help." Um, and also talks about beneficence. In this, just what is talking about the previous beneficence, which is doing um, giving without expecting anything back. And there is no what is it? Inexhaustible. There is no. It doesn't stop coming. Beneficence is inexhaustible. Um, Wrong one. I also mix up with this control. So let's go one more item, because these are the two items that Caritas give us on chapter 13. Does anybody feel like reading, so people don't get bored of my voice? Anyone? Thank you.
There are various ways of practicing charity, which many of you confuse with the giving of alms. However, there is considerable difference between the two. Alms, my friend, are useful sometimes because they can bring alleviation to those who are poor. But this is almost always humiliating, not only for the giver, but also for the receiver. On the other hand, charity joins the benefactor to be one who is receiving the benefit, because it can be disguised in so many ways. It is possible to be charitable even to friends and relations, simply by being indulgent to one another, by mutually forgiving all weakness, and by taking care not to hurt anyone's self-respect. You who are spiritists can be charitable in the way you behave towards others who think differently than you do. or by inducing those who are less enlightened to believe without shocking them, without attacking their own conditions.
So just in this first, thank you, Andrea. So just in this first part, we can see that there are different ways of being charitable. And of course, we're talking about a book written almost 160 years old, 160 years ago. Um, that back then and even nowadays, we think is giving alms, the smallest, giving something material to somebody that is in need. Of course, somebody that is hungry will not be able to receive any enlightening words, any moral support. They will just they're just trying to fill up their basic need, which is food, right? So it is. That's why she's saying that um, alms, my friends, are useful sometimes because they can bring alleviation to those who are poor. So it is not discarded. We shouldn't give material charity. We should, yeah, in order to help them alleviate their hunger, alleviate their most physical, most ingrained suffering. But the other one is like that difference of the people mentioned, instead of giving somebody a fish, teach them how to go and fish for themselves. Yeah, so that's the difference. Um, and also she said we can be charitable in any situation in our lives. Anything that we do, even in our work, there's many ways that we can do our work on our school or whatever, at home. Charity actually starts at home. How do we treat our people that we live with? That's the people that spend most of the time. That's how we should start. Start at home, being charitable at home, and then spread it out from your home to where you work, where you study. Not just charitable. We get together here in the spirits group, right? Because that's the environment. It's easier to do that because everybody's coming here with the same ideals and the same goal, right? But the goal, I mean, the challenge is to be. It is possible to be charitable even to friends and relations simply by being indulgent. So we talked about beneficence, yeah, first, yeah. Or also we could talk about benevolence as well, which we will be talking about that. Benevolence, beneficence, and indulgence and forgiveness. The three pillars of charity, right? We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. We who are spiritists, we can be charitable in the way we behave towards those who think differently. Because even though in Spiritism we say that we accept everyone, we're open to everybody's beliefs, we don't discriminate. But there's still some part where we might see people with different religions in a different way, or little comments that we make on the side. So it's just try to see everyone as brothers and sisters. That's a way of being charitable, not only in our thoughts, in our prayers, but actually in our actions. That's where we put the proof, right? Second part of it. Anybody else would like to read that
I
part?
can read.
Thank you.
As all workers need encouragement, communications from the good spirits come from all sides. The menfolk also take part in this society, bringing their help in the form of greetings, which are pleasing to all. As recompense for the enthusiasm of everyone and of certain individuals, we, the spirits, promise to bring these hard-working laborers good customers, who will pay in the form of blessings, which after all is the only currency acceptable in heaven. We also, we also assure them, without fear of contradictions, that this currency will never be lacking for any of these workers.
Okay.
Caritas beyond 1860.
So between these two readings, there's another part that Caritas says, thank you, Sonny. Caritas says that on this her rounds as well, she went to look at all these group of ladies helping, trying to, with the glove in their hearts, trying to knit and make clothes for people that are in need. So and she tried to tell people that are in pain, people that are complaining, people that are suffering, that help is coming. Help is coming because other people that are in the position to help will come because God will provide. So just like those people that are in need, physical need, she's also offering their help, the Spirit's help. So we're saying communication from the good spirits come from all sides. We just need to be attuned, to be in symphony with superior spirits, that inspiration and opportunities will come on the right side, on the right time and on the right channels that we have around us. So we just need to be looking at that instead of complaining about our daily lives. Or, oh, if I had more money, I'll be able to build a crash, or I'll be able to build something, a school. You know, if we, instead of doing that, we can help by other means as well. And inspiration is always there. And once again, talking about the good spirits, they'll bring hardworking laborers, good customers, who will pay in the form of blessings. So that big tree that we were wondering, all the fruits, will be blessings. Because this is the currency that we have. Everything that we do here cannot be taken from where we go. Or we only take our knowledge, our experience, and the blessings that we are giving. So, and once again, we also assure them without fear of contradictions. Fear. Caritas didn't have any fear when she went through the process of martyrdom, right? When she was asked to deny the teachings of Jesus, she said, "No, I'm not gonna. I prefer to die than deny it." So, we sometimes we are afraid of our social position or what people would think about what we are saying. Because the fear stops us from doing charity. Our pride, our ego, which was mentioned in the first reading, right? Um, so yeah, it's a barrier that stops us from going further, because going now comparing these beautiful messages, of course they're beautiful, and comparing to what we see in the Spirits book, um, and when Kardec asked the spirits on the part three of the moral laws in the chapter 9, or sorry, chapter 11, law of justice, love and charity. And then Allan Kardec asked, what is the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus? Benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. The famous BIF, right? The famous BIF, benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. Not just for those who are around us and we like, okay? Benevolence for everyone. Benevolence, it's a beautiful word, right? But does anybody actually know what it means? Bene, in Latin, is good. And volens is to want or to desire, to wish well. All right? Benevolence for everyone. Yeah? Even in Português, benevolência. Nossa, benevolência. O que significa? What does it mean? Benevolência. Is to desire good, querer o bem. Not just my family, my friends, for everyone. Yeah. Indulgence towards the imperfections of others. And I talked about this, indulgence in English is more used when you're talking about self-indulgence. Oh, I'm going to indulge myself and have a magnum. Magnum. Indulge yourself. When I first arrived in New Zealand, there was this ad. Self-indulgence, to give to yourself. But indulgence actually means to be tolerant, to tolerate. If somebody do something against you, you don't give too much credit to that. You indulgent towards that person. And or towards the perfection of others, and forgiveness of offenses. If the person goes even further and offends you, you have to learn how to forgive that. Because it's a dead weight that you're going to be carrying. Yeah. Um, um, yeah, because just in the first reading, we're talking about trying to connect those two. The first reading talked about not to be so attached to things and to people around you. we tend to think and be attached to people that are good to us, right? Because we are attached, easier to be attached to them. If you love somebody, and once you die, disincarnate, we're going to have to leave them for the moment because they're going to continue living. But or if somebody that you love disincarnate, you're going to leave them for a little bit, but there will be a reunion in a different realm. But sometimes we also attach ourselves to those who we don't like. Somebody that does something to us, we keep holding on that weight, keep thinking about that person. Oh no, I don't. No, I forgive that person, but the law of cause and effect, you get them back. So you do actually didn't forgive. You are hoping that life will get back to the person because he did something to you. Because when you truly forgive, you let it go. You're not carrying that weight anymore. You're not connected to that person or to that thing anymore. Love and charity complement the law of justice. Since loving, I'm going from here, a law of justice, since loving your neighbor is to do to them all the good in our power and that we would wish to have done to ourselves. This is the meaning behind Jesus' words. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. So before you do anything to anybody, go like, would I like if somebody did that to me? Not only that person, but anyone would I like that. True charity is always gentle and compassionate because the manner of practicing kindness is as important as the deed itself. This is beautiful, isn't it? The manner of practicing kindness is as important as the deed itself. There's another passage, it's a long chapter where I'm not going to be reading slides for the whole evening, but by Paul that's saying that in true charity, sorry, not Paul, Saint Vincent de Paul, who's another person that I search again, the investigation. São Vicente de Paulo, São Vincent of Paul, that is saying if you are, when you are charitable, you make the person that is receiving that deed believe that they are doing something good to you. An example, somebody, you know somebody, a friend, let's use a friend because it's easier than an anniversary. Uh, so a friend is having a hard time, you invite them out for coffee, and then have a good conversation, the person feels better, and then the conversation, oh man, thank you for the conversation, that makes me feel really good. You say that to the person, wow, I did something good today. I'm feeling better. So in a way, you make that person feel that they are doing the charity, not you. So that's how the real charity can work. You work in a way that is not obvious. You know, it's very subtle. It's very subtle because you're thinking about the kindness. You're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the person. A service, when gracefully rendered, has twice as much merit. If this same act is rendered as in a patronizing manner, despite being accepted, the recipient's heart is not touched by it. Let's say having a conversation with a friend. Wow, my gosh, you're always so negative. Why are you so negative? Come on, be happy. Come on, let's do something about it. Let's go out dancing. Being trying to put the person down. The person is already down. It's like, why always negative? Always, I'm here having coffee with you, try to bring you up, and you always. How many of us sometimes act like that? So there's two different ways of approaching the same situation, right? Because if his act is rendered in patronizing manner despite being accepted, the recipient's heart is not touched by it. Remember that ostentation and pretension destroy the merit of generosity in God's eyes. Jesus said, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. This teaches that charity should not be tarnished by pride. So this is what the Spirit's book is saying, which is pretty much in hand with CÁRITA said, right? Very much the same thing but in her case, she's just inviting us, give us inspiration to go and do it, to be benevolent, to be indulgent, to be forgiving. I was going to say forgetful, not forgetful, forgiving, to be forgiving, right? Because that's our mission here. We've been studying this on the Wednesdays meetings. If you haven't come back, right? On the Wednesday meetings when we have our study groups, we talked about the mission of the spirits. And in the question 573, it was so beautiful. Um, when the Allan Kardec asked the spirits, what is the mission of incarnate spirits? And the spirits say that it's educating other incarnates, educating them, helping their advancement, and improving their improving the institutions through direct material means. And also say that everything in nature is connected, and all spirits, while purifying themselves through incarnation, contribute to the accomplishment of God's plan. So there is even a comment made that it's like an infinity sign. The more charity you do, the more awareness you have of your surroundings, what the reality is. You kind of leave your bubble to see what's around you, and you learn from that. When you learn from that, you're more capable of helping. And then as you help, you're going to be learning more, and then you're going to be able to see and be not purify yourself, but enlighten yourself with more of this moral evolution that you have. And the more evolution you have, the more you'll be able to help. The more you help, so it's like an infinite loop once you start, because that's the goal. Just like CÁRITA said, I am charity, follow me, because I know the way for those who go is to be with God. By charity. Because by doing charity, we learn. By learning, we're able to do more. By doing more, we learn more, and then we keep growing like that. And an infinite loop. Let's see what another inspiration can we find beyond the Spirit's book. Let's have a look. Um, Let's have a look at the New Testament, the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 15, without charity there's no salvation, the need for charity according to Paul. But this was taken from the Bible, okay? Um, and it's taken from letters of Paul, and in Portuguese we call epístolas, epistles in English, but that's just a letter. This is a fancy name for letter. Epístolas, carta. Epistles is letter, just a fancy name. So he wrote to the church of Corinthians, of Corinth, and we're going to learn where that is. And it's one of the most famous passages of that letter to Corinthians. It became a very popular song by one of Brazilian's bands back in the early 90s. And I'll be able to know if you are old or not, because those who remember, ainda que eu falasse a língua dos homens e falasse a língua dos anjos, sem amor eu nada seria. Everyone is young because nobody's saying, right? You guys don't know the song? Nobody joined me in the song. Okay, so nobody knows. Everybody's young in this early 90s, actually in 1989. Great album. So yeah, that's that part. For those who don't speak Portuguese, that part is taken from this passage, which is from Corinthians, the first letter of Corinthians, 13, 1, verse 13, items 1 to 7. Does anybody want to read that part?
Even if I were to speak all the languages of men and the language of all the angels themselves, if I did not have charity, I would be only like a sounding board or a
Clanging.
clanging cymbal. And if I were to have the gift of prophecy and grasped all mysteries, and if I had a perfect knowledge of all things, and if I had all the faith possible to the point of moving mountains, if I didn't have charity, I would be nothing. And if I were to distribute my belongings to feed the poor and deliver my body to the burn, if I did not have charity, none of this would be of any use to me. Charity is patient. It is kind and benevolent. Charity is not envious. It is not rash or hurried. It's not full of pride. It's not scornful. It does not look after its own interests. It doesn't take offense or become upset by anything. It doesn't suspect evil. It doesn't rejoice in injustice, but rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Now these three virtues remain: faith, hope, and charity. But among them, the most excellent is charity.
Amazing, isn't it? So there is a little asterisk there on charity, because just like the song I say, it says, "Sem amor, eu nada seria." Without love, I wouldn't be anything. On this, on the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a footnote that explains that uh, the version that Allan Kardec used, it was a translation by Sassy. And so Sassy's version of the Bible uses the word charity for the Greek term agape, which is in all other English versions is rendered as love. So charity derives from the Latin caritas, that's there she is again, which is the Latin equivalent of agape. Webster's, which is a dictionary, states as one of the definitions of charity, Christian love, agape. So the way I understand it, the way I see it, is that charity is the manifestation of love, is the actual fruit of love. Because without love, you cannot be charitable, truly charitable. So even though they can be interchanged in this part, but in a way they can be separate because love is more abstract. We all feel it, we all know it, but to put it down into a physical term, charity, that's the proof that is in the pudding, right? That's the proof that we are actually loving somebody is by doing that charity, especially when we're talking about Christian love, love towards God, love towards our fellow beings, our brothers and sisters. So that is why it's Louis charity. But analyzing the message itself, we remember we're talking about material charity and moral charity. Even if I do material charity without having the moral charity behind it, is useless. Just like Paul said here, you know. And if I were to distribute my belongings to feed the poor and deliver my body to be burned, if I did not have charity, none of this would be of any use to me. Charity is patient. Yeah. We're talking about be patient with those we live around or we work around. It's kind, benevolent, not envious, not rash, not hurried. So once again, does that agree with the message that Caritas gave us? I think so. It just complements even more. That's kind of the source because it came from Paul, and Paul was one of the biggest and most widespread disseminators of Spiritism. And I'll show you how widespread that was in a very shortly. But he left, because he was before he was Paul, before he became Paul, he was Saul of Tarsus, which is like Turkey. But from Turkey, he was also in Jerusalem, Turkey, and he went all the way to Corinth, which is very far away. He established a church there, so he spread out a lot of these messages. So it came from him. And do you remember the names of at the beginning? I showed the three sisters and the mother who were martyred. Do you guys remember who they were? Sophia, the mother.
Yeah, they in English.
Now, these three virtues remain faith, hope, and charity. Yeah. The three virtues that the sisters use as a baptized name. But among them, the most excellent is charity. Because once again, that's the manifestation. Because you only be charitable, if you have faith and hope, that'll become charity. Because you're doing the charity because you have faith that that's going to be good for the person, good for you. And you hope that by helping that person, the person will grow up as well. So the three they are um, connected, interconnected, but the most excellent is charity, which I was going to say faith. I can't remember the name in Latin. Um, so Just to give a bit of a historical context, so this is a little map, this little square here, you just see it here. So Corinth is a part of the Isthmus of Corinth, and is a very ancient city that started 6,000 years ago, in a city that went through many wars, many taking overs. And back in that day, it was a very important because there was a massive port around here, this area, between one gulf and the other. So it was a very, in a way, prosperous area where there's a lot of people from different parts, different countries, different languages, a lot of the melting pots of different cultures. So why do you think Paul wanted to give that particular message to Corinth? Yeah, because probably, yeah, to spread the word, but also to try to bring the word there, because if we have segregation, um, racism, we have separatism in these days now, imagine 2,000 years ago. Depending where you came from, what religion you were, what you believe, you would just be in that part, right? So, so that charity and love, helping and loving others, it will be a good message to spread in that area. And just to give a little bit of context, historical context, ancient Corinth was one of the largest and most important cities of Greece, with a population of 90,000 in 400 BC. The Romans demolished Corinth in 146 BC, built a new city in its place in 44 BC, and later made it the provincial capital of Greece. So this demolishing, how do you think that happened? It was a war, right? There was a war there that destroyed the city. Now let's build another one. Okay. For Christians, Corinth is well known for the two letters of St. Paul in the New Testament, First and Second Corinthians. Corinth is also mentioned in Acts of the Apostles as part of Paul the Apostle's missionary travels. So Paul left um, Tarsus, which is in Turkey, now they Turkey, then Jerusalem, and went all the way to Greece. That's about 2,600 kilometers. You can't Uber that, or you can't fly a plane there, you can't. Right? So he traveled far to spread the word. And here we are still talking about his word in New Zealand, all the way the other side of the world, right? 2,000 years later. That message that Jesus brought us. So yeah, it's important to try to bring to these days, because according to the spirits on Genesis chapter 28, prophecies in the light of Spiritism, the spirits tell us that the time has come. The time has come. The time is now. We've been seeing, we've been talking about it, we've been reading, we've been giving this message over 2,000 years ago by Jesus, spread by Paul, spread by CÁRITA herself, and other missionaries and other followers of Spiritism, by Allan Kardec in the spirits. But the time is now. Up till now, humankind has made incontestable progress. Does anybody else want to read? Thank you.
Up to now, humankind has made incontestable progress. Due to their intelligence, humans have achieved results never reached before regarding science, arts, and material well-being. There is much progress yet to be made. However, we have yet to live charity, fraternity, and solidarity reign among us, and in order to assure their world well-being.
Yeah, so we have advanced, haven't we? Since this was written, I'm not talking about Jesus' time, because it's a long time ago, but even when this book was written, you know, we have achieved even more. You were saying back then, we achieved, humankind has achieved a lot. Even from then to now, we have achieved even more. Yeah. But we have achieved in our intellect. We progressed in material ways, which is already, we know that that's the way it goes, right? We will talk about the law of progress in the Spirit's books. That first people evolve materially, and then morally. It drags a little bit. So we're still dragging, but we are hopefully getting there. But there is yet much progress yet to be made, and we have making this progress, right? I was just watching uh, a short about Neil Neil deGrasse Tyson here. It is not a spiritist, he's not even Christian. But what he said kind of struck with me that we have progressed a lot, and there's more science, the health, there's more comparing. I think I was comparing COVID with the plague that happened 100 years ago. You know, the flu, influenza that killed millions of people. Now we had better science that we managed to control it. We're still suffering. You know, some people don't like to believe that, but in China there's another insurgence happening of the virus. Um, but yeah, and I also you said before, you know, it's like say for example during the Second World War, thousands of people died per hour between 39 and 45. But nobody knew about that because there was no internet back then. But now somebody gets a bus and drive a bus in a crowd of people. It becomes news worldwide for a few hours. It becomes news in that country for maybe a few days, and it becomes news on that city for months. You know, because we have more knowledge. But it seems that it's not. But we are actually progressing if we want to look for the right information, right? Um, so it just there's a big jump between 5 and 23, but it just goes from the fact that those sentiments, charity, fraternity, and solidarity. Is anybody else who would like to read? Yeah, can you read again,
Read
Sue?
again, yeah.
Thank you.
Believing that most people are
Imbued?
imbued with such sentiments, one can easily imagine the change that would occur in some relations. Charity, fraternity, and benevolence towards all, and tolerance for all beliefs will be their motto. This is the objective towards which humankind is obviously headed, the objective of its aspirations and desires, without it being fully aware of the means of the fulfilling them. It experiments and feels around, but is hampered by active resistance of the strength of inertia because caused by prejudice and stationary beliefs that are stubbornly resistant to progress. Such are the obstacles that must be overcome, and this will be the task of the new generation. By following the present course of things, one can see that everything is predestinated to open the way for it. The new generation will hold the dual power of numbers and ideas, in addition to the experience of the past.
Yeah, so this, you know, the prophecy in the light of Spiritism, the time has come. This only come to pass when in our social relations we have these charity, fraternity, benevolence, tolerance for all beliefs will be their motto. So this is the objective. We have progressed a lot physically, and we still continue to, I mean, intellectually, I should say, but we should still be looking at progress, our moral progress. We have much resources around us. We have much knowledge. We have much lessons by many people. We haven't even mentioned, you know, within Spiritism, Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, and other religions, Mother Teresa de Calcutta, Irmã Dulce, and many others that help. And even around us, you know, people that are around us, and you can see they are living proof of that. Sometimes even without having a religion. Yeah. So and yeah, there has more to say and more to talk about. You know, even when we talk about uh, the motto of Spiritism, without charity, there's no salvation. Just a reminder that, because by saying that, we're implying that there is salvation in Spiritism, which is not. We're not in Spiritism. We don't believe in the eternal punishment that you can be saved from. We believe in evolution. So there was just a twist that Allan Kardec did, because back in the days there was a campaign by the church, because a lot of people after the revolutions, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the evolution of philosophers back in the day, people looking more of proof of what the Bible was saying. And the church went back and said, without the church, there's no salvation. Right? That was the slogan. Just like McDonald's and Nike have their slogans, the church had a slogan. Without the church, there's no salvation. And then Allan Kardec did a twist of that. Actually, no, without charity, there is no salvation. But knowing that we all going to be saved, depending and the speed that we're going to be saved or enlightened is how fast we work. The fastest we work towards charity and in our enlightenment, the faster we're going to be saved. But it's not saved because we're never doomed anyway, right? So it's interesting to understand why the things are. Because sometimes, just like benevolence or benevolence, we just use benevolent towards everyone. What does it mean? What does it actually mean? Go behind what it's saying and find out. So we say, without charity there's no salvation. But what does it actually mean? Why did Kardec use that? Salvation, if we Spiritism doesn't believe in, doesn't in the judgment day, or so that's why it was a twist on the slogan. Yeah. So just a final, I know we're going over time a little bit, but just a little bit, we're going to go over the prayer of Caritas, which is, it's not on the Spirit's book, it's not on the codification, but in fact, this prayer was psychographed on December 25th, on Christmas Day, in 1873, by Madame W. Crel, is a French medium, in Bordeaux, dictated by the spirit of called Caritas, and published in Radiation of Spiritual Life. So I'm just going to put, I found this beautiful, um, reading by somebody. By the way, thanks everybody for reading, but let's see if it goes.
God, our Father, who is all power and goodness, give strength to those who go through tribulations. Give light to those who seek the truth, and fill the human heart with compassion and charity. God, give the guiding star to the traveler, consolation to the afflicted, and rest to the sick. Father, give repentance to the guilty, truth to the spirit, guidance to the child, and a father to the orphan. Lord, may your goodness extend over everything that you have created, and mercy, Lord, to those who do not know you, but hope to those who suffer. May your goodness allow the consoling spirits to spread peace, hope, and faith everywhere. God, a ray of light and a spark of your love can inflame the earth. Let us drink from the fountains of this abundant and infinite goodness, and all tears will be dried, and all pain will be lessened. A single heart, a single thought will rise up to you, like a cry of gratitude and love. Like Moses on the mountain, we await for you with open arms. O goodness, O beauty, O perfection. And we wish in some way to deserve your mercy. God, give us the strength to help progress, so we may rise up to you. Give us pure charity, give us faith and reason, and above all, give us the simplicity and the humility that will make of our souls a mirror in which your divine image can be reflected always. And so it is.